Hey everyone, Adam here, SoWizardPodcast.com. Got another interview for you. Before we get into that, please remember to subscribe to the channel. We've been putting out a lot of stuff lately. We've got a lot of cool interviews, working on more coming up. Kind of filling that void for not having Comic-Cons this year, but it's also great to talk to all these super creative, awesome people. So yeah, please subscribe to the channel. Really helps us grow our audience. We do appreciate it. We're working on new content all the time. Today's interview is with writer, director, editor Guy Moshe. He made a movie that comes out tomorrow, September 25th, 2020, depending on when you're watching this. LX2048. We got early access to this movie, which is cool in itself, but it makes it all that much cooler that I loved this movie. This movie resonated with me on so many levels. It's obviously 2048 is the year. It kind of takes our technology and jumps it forward. I'm sorry, I'm stammering a little bit. I don't want to give anything away. Obviously, you're about to watch an interview. I don't want to rattle on for too long. And I have a whole write-up coming out for it. So, yeah, tell you what, do that. Listen to the interview, read my write-up on the movie, and then tomorrow, September 25th, it's coming to iTunes, Amazon, Spectrum, Comcast, whatever major platform you have to rent or own. It is totally worth it. It speaks to our time, it speaks to our technology, and it actually speaks to right now, our current time, way more than Mr. Moshe ever could have predicted when he was writing and making this movie. It stars James D'Arcy, who does a phenomenal job carrying this movie, and he plays so many scenes kind of by himself, which makes sense when you watch the movie. I loved it. Mr. Moshe was an absolute delight to talk to. We connected on so many levels. I felt like I really got what he was going for in the movie. He had genuine enthusiasm about that, which was really exciting. So enjoy the interview.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is cool. I got a chance to watch the movie and I really liked it.
Thank you, man.
So you were the writer and the director, right?
Yeah, and the editor too.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Where did the story idea come from? Because it felt really, there's a better word than appropriate, but it felt very timely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I couldn't anticipate that, but like the story really started from the human aspect of it, believe it or not. Like the first thing that came to my mind was, I'm a happily married man. I have 3 kids of my own. But when you're married with kids, your social circle starts kind of being comprised of a lot of other couples with kids and parents from school and things of that nature. And I found myself, I think around about a year before I started writing the screenplay, it was 2015, I think, or something like that. Suddenly around me, a lot of marriages and relationships started going up in flames for a variety of different reasons, but it was almost like a season of divorce, and some as kind of fate would have it, like some of these people were like friends of ours, either the male or female part of what's going on, and you start hearing these stories from multiple different points of view, and I couldn't help but feel like there's a common thread in all of those stories, where even though it was very different individuals, different people, it all kind of came down to adults suddenly in a place in their life reflecting on where they are, and not being satisfied with how they kind of what they've accomplished, or if maybe they weren't able to fulfill the potential they thought they had when they were younger or something like that. And I thought it was a very interesting topic, and I wanted to write something about that. But on side by side with it, I also was realizing that a lot of that had to do in some odd way with the kind of technological revolution that we're going through. Like in this new world, the family structure just felt like it wasn't enough anymore for a lot of those people, and I was trying to kind of ask myself why that is, and my mind sort of like started connecting these two things together, and I don't know, from there the film kind of started taking shape in that environment of the future. One of the things that I was certain as I was kind of going through it is that I could feel like we're heading into an increasingly isolated life experience. And we're almost doing it subconsciously, but a lot of it has to do with all the technology that we've developed around us. So that in an odd way, all the kind of advent of social networks and kind of socializing through the internet or whatever, while on the one hand, it seems like it's increasing our capacity to interact with one another, it actually has an opposite effect to it too, because it reduces the need for physical interaction. And I could see that, like, I don't know how to explain, like I could see it even in my own house. And then, you know, I would come back home, suddenly I became hypersensitive to my kids, like playing on iPad. I would notice that my kids prefer to have their individual tablet to consume content and gather around the TV like we used to do. And it just kind of built up from there. Of course, I couldn't anticipate that we'd be experiencing this whole thing in reality in 2020.
Exactly. Yeah, you used a poison sun, but it's the same deal.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, last week I was, for the first time in my life, was checking the air quality index before getting out of the house. You know, not that there's too much to go to right now, but like even to go shopping, you know, you don't know if you can go walking or you have to be in your car. And I thought to myself, this is insane. And the fact that 2 weeks ago, I think, was the hottest recorded weekend in California.
Oh yeah, you guys have been taking a beating over there.
It's just crazy, you know. So it really felt here like the movie is just no longer science fiction. It's science present, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Really, the technology aspect you were just talking about really spoke to me, and I think that's going to strike a chord with a lot of people, because even people who are all in on the technology realize it's an addiction. They can't do anything about it. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not anti-technology, oddly enough. I know the film probably kind of sends a different message in it, but it's more kind of a almost self-deprecating humor. And I think the same kind of self-deprecating humor that is in the film, to a degree, of the satirical aspect of it, is kind of where I am also myself. Is, you know, the other thing that actually I should have mentioned about writing the film was that along the same time, somebody introduced me to VR technology as a filmmaker. And I was lucky enough to actually go to USC and see it, like in one setting. I was able to see all the different types of kind of technologies that were kind of being about to be launched out there, you know, Vive and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but Oculus Rift and all this kind of stuff. And I was blown away by it, you know, like blown away. Like when I put it on, I was like, where are we going to go from here? Because so a part of me was thinking, like, we're not there yet, obviously, but I do think that augmented reality and virtual reality is just a natural extension of everything we're doing right now in the digital world. And it will come. It will come in 10 years from now, or who knows when, but like it will come, you know? And then you have to start wondering, like what's the incentive to go as a tourist to see the Eiffel Tower if you could just, you know, sit on a couch and kind of see it without having any pressure on your knees, and like, you know, the temperature is exactly right, and you could even, you know, suck on some banana juice while you're going through this. So it's like you kind of your mind starts wondering, like, if and when that's available, how many more things like that are going to become type of obsolete experiences for us, reasons for us to get out of the house, you know. And I think, you know, we're in the cinematic kind of realm, and I feel like theaters is one of those things that we, you know, obviously, you know, will increasingly become less of a thing like we used to do in the past, just because of the nature of the way that the human kind of experience is progressing. So, you know, all the things were in my mind, and somehow, even though I'm not anti-technology or whatever, I couldn't help feel the pain of like there is an importance to physical existence and physical interaction, you know.
Yeah, I like that you had your main character really trying to hold on to that, but then it was not all altruistic, his own reasons. So it was a nice blend.
Yeah, he's not necessarily. It's kind of an anti-hero hero, right? Like he's not
Yeah.
necessarily, he's a very flawed human being, but which, by the way, I think all of us are flawed to one degree or another. And I thought that that was more of a three-dimensional, fair way to look at the character. But he at least has one strong belief that seems to be um, sincere in that it's not even rationalized. He doesn't necessarily, even if you look at the film, as even though the film has a lot of dialogue and a lot of places for him to express himself, he never really rationalizes this kind of angst that he has about holding on to this physical existence. He doesn't explain himself. It just feels right to him that that's what he should be doing, which I think is the thing about our physical existence in a way.
I did really like that aspect between him and the wife, where you think you're getting one side of the story, then when you get the whole thing, it's a very balanced, fair, neither's right, neither's fully wrong. They're both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she comes across at the beginning like kind of the villainous wife, but
exactly.
Like you realize later that, you know, she actually had much less expectation from him than he might have had from himself and from her. You know, like she was satisfied just living the life.
That really hits home towards the end. I don't want to give anything away for people who are
of course,
watched it yet, but yeah. So you obviously couldn't have predicted that we'd all be locked in our houses for 6 months when you made the movie. How did you get to that point with the toxic sun and humans have to kind of only live at night? And
it just it all made sense. Like when I was developing, you know, when you do this kind of exercise in world building, and I think that has nothing to do with budgets or like with size of film or whatever. I think the first thing you have to do as a filmmaker when you want to kind of build a universe, and I've done this once before in a very different way and in a very different genre, is you have to define the rules of your universe, you know? And in this particular piece, what I really wanted to try to do is I knew it was going to be satirical. I knew I was going to try and have some, you know, like amp up the humorous aspect where I can a little bit. But at the same time, I was just observing where we are and just kind of, you know, raising the amplifier on it, on every little thing. So for instance, you know, observing children nowadays so attached to their phones and to their screens, I was like, well, when you put this on, it becomes even magnified even further. And then I thought about the room, and I thought about, if you're going to be in this thing the whole day playing games, then your room has to be padded so you don't hit the walls and stuff. And like, it kind of, you know, went, you know, block by block. So when I was thinking about the world outside, one of the things that occurred to me is that I don't really like in sci-fi films where like they're trying to depict 20, 30 years from where we are, and suddenly you have flying cars and people wearing like bizarre clothes that seems like from, you know, from Mars. And I'm like, look back 25 years, we haven't really changed that much since 1995. You know, it's like certain things, yes, but not. You don't walk in the streets of New York or LA and you go, in 1995 it looked completely different. It didn't. You know, like there's little aspects of it, right? So I was trying to think about what's going to happen as an impact from the sun being so strong. I definitely felt that the air quality is going to deteriorate in the same type of way, because the reason the sun has gotten so strong is obviously the ozone layer. So it's kind of like interconnected subject. And then I thought to myself, well, if you can't really go out as much, then the world outside is not going to necessarily going to become more advanced and technological. If anything, it's going to decay. It's going to freeze and decay a little bit. Certain things are going to be useless, which I do think will happen regardless. Like, for instance, I don't see us going to malls in 20, 30 years from now. I don't know how much of the shopping that we're going to do is going to remain physical versus moving completely like to the digital realm. And yet I thought, as a mode of transportation, I thought, you know, at some point somebody will kind of finish developing these modes of transportation that are so much more efficient than either the cars we drive or the subway or whatever. And I've seen that they're working on this Hyperloop train. And I started imagining what happens if this Hyperloop train becomes a thing that is within cities, not just in between cities and stuff like that. So that was the only element that I wanted to kind of take into my futuristic setting. And the rest of it was almost kind of scaling it back, you know?
Yeah, you used all tech that does exist now, just extrapolated on it.
Exactly.
Even the thing.
And I mean, again, the chips
Sorry.
is also, I mean, sounds like, you know, I mean, some people were surprised when I was talking to them about it, but that does exist. It already exists. Like you can
Yeah.
actually implant, you can do chip implants, of course, not for, you know, the entire existence of yourself, but like, you know, they're doing it in nerve systems and stuff like that. And this is being swallowed now by the biological body, but it exists and it works, you know, and there's already computers out there that can mimic large parts of human behavior. But if you follow information technology, and that's why, by the way, the year 2048 is just a symbolic year because it's 3 years after singularity. That's why I chose
Okay.
that year. But like in theory, in information technology, every 2 years the chips get half as small and they contain double the amount of information. And it's been going on since the 80s. This is what we're going through without stop, the same graph. So when you think about where that's headed, that's where singularity is going to happen. And I do believe it will happen. You know, like at some point there will be a computer that can basically copy, you know, all of our electronic data.
Oh yeah, it's probably further along than we even realize.
Yeah. And I don't know if to be scared of it or not, but I'm just saying, it's like, you know, there was a time nobody believed a computer can beat a grandmaster in chess, you know, and we're long past that as well.
Right, yeah, now you carry it in your pocket every day.
Exactly. So
As far as directing the movie goes, there was a lot of scenes that seemed challenging for the actors. I don't know how it was as you as a director, where like your lead is having heated conversations into a headset.
mhm.
Was that kind of a
um,
directing challenge?
yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, first of all, James couldn't have been a more amazing collaborator. And some of the things I got to do on this movie are things I've long wanted to do, but I definitely want to try to do them from here on out almost on every film. I had a chance to, first of all, kind of in the pre-prep process, to sit down with him in London for a week and go over. We literally went scene by scene in the script, and we were able to talk about it. I was able to explain to him exactly what I meant with every little thing that I put in there, to take a lot of his input as an actor, to dial the scenes and the conversations a little bit to his mannerism and his kind of speech pattern. And you know, because we all speak different, we have a different way of kind of like um, putting the emphasis sometimes on certain things or whatever. So that was very, very interesting to do. To the question you're asking about, it's very hard for an actor to act blindly. If you can imagine, he couldn't, like in actuality, he wasn't seeing anything.
Right.
So to his credit, that was a big challenge. He not only, you know, of course we don't see ourselves, but like we do have a kind of a perception of our body language or where we are in the space, and that helps to give context. All of those scenes, James was basically blind and kind of trusting in me as an outside observer, and in some bizarre way, it gave us, you know, an increased measure of trust between actor and director, because he really needed to rely on my outside point of view to know that he's kind of spot on in things. I did write for him. This is something he asked me to do, which was brilliant. So when I wrote the script, there was no, you know, I wrote these conversations almost like a monologue where you don't really hear the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up writing all the dialogue on the other side of it, which I then extracted in post. But like when he was performing those scenes, somebody would feed him the lines that are coming to him, so then he would be able to actually have a conversation.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Which was very helpful, I thought, for the performance factor of it.
Absolutely.
So
It worked.
and then filming it was also one of those things where you kind of like you try to make it interesting enough for the audience, but there's also, I always was looking for something that you know, subconsciously puts us in that in two very different perspectives. One is kind of being in his head, but on the other one, seeing how ridiculous he looks in the objective truth of the universe, you know,
Yeah.
like which kind of symbolizes where we are, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a million more questions. I thought the movie was awesome, but I know you have a ton of these things to do, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, man, and really appreciate all the kind words on the film, and amazing that you you saw it correctly for sure. That I can.
Yeah, it
That I
definitely
can already
resonated
tell.
with me.
So
So
thanks, man. Look
thanks again.
forward to
Take care.
talk to you about the next one. Thank you,
Absolutely,
man.
yeah.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Wasn't that guy awesome? I mean, I wanted to talk to him for another 2 hours just about this movie, and that's not even getting into what he thinks about all the implications of the technologies and things like that. I mean, just such a cool guy. He took all these great things and packaged them into one movie, and if I listed everything this movie was about, you'd think the movie was 17 hours long and it would still be too jam-packed, but he really pulled it off. Absolutely loved it. Loved talking to him. Thank you to him again for taking the time for coming on our show and giving us some insight into this phenomenal movie. Again, you gotta watch it. September 25th it comes out, all major platforms. I'm not just trying to sell it because he came onto the show. I legitimately love this movie. Well, there's another interview for you. Again, please remember to subscribe to our channel. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to go to SoWizardPodcast.com for reviews, recommendations, merchandise, and more. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get bonus content and you get to help support the show.